calling all misfits, rebels, leaders, and teachers, welcome to the one place where the only way to fit in is by standing out, where big goals are met with even bigger action, and where we talk through then tackle all things entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Kelsey Knudsen, and this is the Get Shit Done podcast. Welcome to the Revolution.
Okay, I need to preface this, you guys. I did not rig it. I did not rig this, but I am joined by my friend, my family member, my photographer, so many things. But ultimately, here's like the quick cliff notes you need to know. I ran a contest that was 12 Days of Christmas, and there were certain things you had to do on YouTube to enter. Haley entered, and it was totally random, and she won. So today, I get to sit back and just hear all the expertise and knowledge and inspiring thoughts she has to share with you. I know you're going to walk away from this episode probably feeling like a badass, but also hearing a really raw, authentic story of something just amazing she's built as a photographer. But I feel like that word doesn't even fully encapsulate all that you do. So I'm going to get it out of the way. Haley, could you give a quick intro to the people? If they've never met you before, what would you tell them? Like, tell them a little bit about you, what you do, and how you got to this place.
To the people. Hi, everyone. I'm Haley Atkins. I am technically a photographer, but yeah, what I do is so much more than that. It's really healing. It's really coaching. It's a lot of different things. Well, photography was always something I really loved, even as like a young girl with like disposable cameras in the early 2000s. I think I got my first digital camera when I was 13, played around with it, loved it. Kind of fell in love with like landscape and flowers that way. And then once I got old enough to drive, got my first DSLR camera, and I basically skipped class a lot, like all the time, to take trips to Oregon and different parts of the state to take photos and to go on little adventures. It was kind of an escape, but it was also like, I just knew from a young age that I had this heart for travel and for connecting with strangers, and I just knew that like photography was a really easy way to meet that craving that I had to be in new places. And I just love change, and I love new scenery, and I love capturing it. And so I kind of chased that with photography for a long time, thinking that I was going to be like a landscape photographer, which turns out is harder to make money from. I tried like selling landscape prints and stuff. It just didn't work out. And then I think it was like senior year into first couple years of college, I started playing around with portraits. And then I was like, okay, I can definitely make money from this. So I kind of like started doing that. And then COVID happened. And at the time that we got shut down and the pandemic started, I was in a super toxic, abusive relationship. And so COVID made things even more restrictive and even more
Isolating?
Isolated. Thank you. Yeah. So very isolated. I was home. We shared a car, which was my car, and he used it for work. So I was literally stranded at home by myself all day, every day for months and months. And then I was like, I have to do something. Like, because then he ended up tearing his Achilles and having surgery and like couldn't move. So he would like the work that he was doing was manual labor, so he couldn't work at all, and he wasn't qualified for unemployment. So we were living off of my unemployment, and I was doing everything. I was like trying to get extra money. I was budgeting. I was like clipping coupons. I was taking care of him full time, making every meal, doing all of the cleaning, and he was just a POS to me the whole time. And I just knew that there was something better, and that this wasn't my forever. And I ended up becoming like a social media manager for my mom. My mom owns her own Pilates studio. So I was doing that, and then she kind of referred me to some of her friends who were also business owners. So I was doing social media managing for them. And then I got like 4 or 5 more clients. So I was doing a lot of social media managing and making some like cash flow, to kind of pay for, that helped pay for like new equipment that I needed. It was a crazy time. But I ended up opening my own business finally, just as a photographer, like 8 months later in March of 2021. And then I had been doing a lot of meditating and yoga, and that for me was like my savior because that's kind of what I poured my energy into when I was alone and isolated during that time. And I just got these like downloads and these visions that I was going to do elopements in Europe, and like I all of my dreams were going to come true and everything was going to be okay and money was going to come. And then within like 4 months, 4 or 5 months of opening my photography business, I landed a wedding in Italy. I don't know how, but it was meant to be. And then a couple months later after that, I ended that toxic relationship, and then I hired a photographer within a couple of weeks, maybe less, of breaking up with him. I hired a photographer to kind of capture my courage and my strength to be able to leave. And just, I knew that I had broken chains. I knew that it wasn't just a big deal for me to leave for the sake of like my safety. It was generational. Like it was huge. It was a really big deal. Like I could feel in my body that these chains had broken, that like I had set free all of the women before me that had been in toxic relationships by choosing this. And I knew that like this was a moment in history that needed to be documented. And so I reached out to the photographer. She was available. I sent her the money. I was like, this is happening. And I think she was like, happened to be available within a week or two. And so we did the thing. It was at a waterfall. And so it was like very representative of like rebirth and like a baptism, basically, like being cleansed of everything I had been through and like stepping into a new life, stepping into a new version of me and like embracing that and welcoming that, inviting that in. And that was the experience. It was so transformative for me and opened my eyes so much that I was like, this is what photography means to me. This is what I want to do with my work. I want to help women release their chains, break their chains, and be a mirror for them and allow these photos to be a mirror for them and to be a witness to their lives and a witness to their healing, a witness to their transformation, and to help them believe that it's possible, that you are everything that you want to believe you are. And the only thing in your way is you and believing it. But sometimes all it takes is being able to actually see yourself that way first. And that's what photos can do. That's what a camera can do. And so now I get to do that. And I did weddings for a while. My whole first 3 years of my business was weddings and elopements. I don't know how many I've done, somewhere around 50, I want to say, something like that. And it was fun, but I think the more I get into the truth of who I am, what I'm meant to be, what my zone of genius is, how I can really provide the most amount of value to the lives around me is through this empowerment work. It's through working with female entrepreneurs. It's through empowering women and showing women that they are worthy, that they can claim their worth, that everything that they want is at their fingertips and is possible. And being able to do that through photography, it's such a gift every day.
First of all, how brave. Like your why behind what you do, I think is so deeply rooted. And if you guys follow her stuff on social media, which we're gonna pause here, where can people find your Instagram so they can stalk and listen? Where should they go?
Yeah. It's at Nota Lux. So it's NOTA.LUX.
So go over there and take a sneak peek. And I think what you're saying also is very against the grain for the photography industry as a whole. And, I'm going to put on my business coach hat for a sec, which is this. The very on paper move would be just keep doing the wedding stuff. You're making good money. The demand is there. The images are beautiful. People are happy. It's a joyful event. But as you're telling your story and how you got into photography, that's not your why. I think this kind of ties into that conversation around success and what that really means for us, because I think it evolves. Even though that may have quote unquote worked, I feel like the stuff you're doing now, it sounds like is just so much more rewarding and exciting, and maybe a little bit even like vulnerable, because it means the people reaching out to you and needing your services are also coming from a vulnerable place where you have to hold space for them and navigate that with them. And I imagine a very joyful, like beautiful Vogue magazine level bride is quote unquote probably a little easier to photograph, just like technically, than someone who is, working through some shit. Yeah, I'm just curious your thoughts on that, but also how do you balance that out? Like, how do you draw that beauty and confidence out of your people? Because again, I just thinking of where they're coming from, that's probably a harder thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different for everybody. Some people need more hand-holding and some people want more space, but a lot of it is asking the right questions and starting the conversation out with like my discovery calls, beginning the conversation with really meaningful questions and like go diving right in and holding space for them immediately. Which shows that I care, but it's also like so much of the work is just allowing them to step into being witnessed. Like so much of the work is showing them that this is a safe space for you to come forward and your beauty and everything that needs to be seen is going to be seen just by you being you. Yeah. And I know that sounds really cliche, but I think people can sense energy. They can sense when someone is safe. They can sense when someone cares. And it's really simple. Just, you're safe here. I see you. I am engaged with you. I notice what's popping up. I'm asking you questions. I'm curious about you. I'm interested in you. It's not about selling. It's not about what I can get from them. It's like, what can I give to them? How can I provide value to them in a way that is going to, even if they don't book with me, it's going to improve their lives. Is going to make them think deeper about who they are and how they're showing up and why they're showing up and what's really going on internally with them. And I think naturally when people feel safe, they glow. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Stardust. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
There's this movie called Stardust. It'll make sense. Basically, there's this star that gets knocked out of the sky and she like becomes like a personified version of a star, like a person. And in order for her to like glow again, she has to feel like safe and taken care of. And I just think about that as people. When we feel safe, we feel like we belong, we feel seen, we feel like people really care about us, we start to glow naturally, and just like the best parts of ourselves come out. And there's something intangible about it, right? It's like being able to see the difference in someone's eyes when they're sad versus when they're happy. They're the same eyes, but you can feel it, you can sense it. And I think that comes through in photography. When you're just coaching someone as a photographer, you're just giving them directions on a pose, but you're not really telling them how to embody the pose, where the pose is coming from, why you're telling them to do the pose from within. It feels different. It looks different. It translates differently.
And I feel like I need to share my story because if you guys didn't know this, I actually hired Haley to take my branding photos. And if you snoop my Instagram, all the badass most recent photos are her work. And what a lot of people don't know, and what Haley didn't even know in the moment, which sorry to dump this on you afterwards, but I had to tell you, is that when I had that photo shoot, I had gone through a miscarriage. We booked it, not a year, but a long time in advance. So in the time frame between us chatting and vibing and being like, let's do this thing, to the date it was scheduled, I'd gone through a miscarriage and I was pregnant again. And I was like 6-ish weeks pregnant. And I was not feeling like my hottest self, not even close. And the level of photo shoot we had kind of mapped out and planned out was like the full badass CEO version of me I could possibly even fathom. And so I had to show up as that person. And I'm usually a pretty confident person. Like, I'm pretty comfortable with myself. I would not, I have my quirks and stuff, but like, I'm not afraid to be on a stage. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. I'm not afraid to go somewhere with no makeup on. Like, I feel really comfortable in my skin, but in that moment I didn't. And I almost canceled because I was like, this is so awkward. My boobs are huge. She doesn't know why. hopefully I'm not like vomiting everywhere. I don't know how I'm going to feel. And I did it anyways. Somehow I felt like physically fine in that moment. I had to borrow her bra. Like, it's seriously, you guys, like, it's so funny now being able to say it out loud. But in the moment I showed up, Haley had no clue all this baggage was happening. She was not aware of it. And just the way you like made me feel so comfortable and confident. And again, going into this, I didn't think I would need that as much from you. I mean, guidance, yes. Comfortable, yes. But like that extra like boost of like, you got this, you're hot, I see you, you're so amazing. Like those pep talks meant so much in that moment as your client. And I just have to call that out because it's crazy how I didn't value it going into this. I just think you do beautiful work and I knew you would like help me be me, but like, man, did I need that in that moment. And there's no way I would have gotten the results. We would have gotten the art that we got from that without you. And so I just have to really credit, like when you're watching, you're so much more than that. The vehicle for what you do is photography. It's weird. That's not like what you do, if that makes any sense at all. It's so against the grain from like the norm in the coolest way. And I just want people to really get that. So I just had to share.
Thank you. Oh, a little misty-eyed.
Yeah,
It means a lot.
It was a wild, wild time. And I want to hear, like, as you're sharing this expertise, I kind of want to turn the table a tiny bit to photography specifically, because that moment to shift and break the norm. You talk about breaking chains when you left your bad person, but like breaking the chains of business where like you build something and it's working. And then to say like, hey, I really do want to shift this to be more in alignment. How was that? Like, was that a hard thing to do? Was that scary? Do you mind sharing that experience? Because I think there's people here who may feel that way about their businesses and they don't know the way out.
Yeah. You know, I'm probably not going to give a sexy answer that people want to hear.
Yeah.
And most of the time, like, the one that they need to hear is not sexy anyways.
Yeah.
I've known that I've needed to shift into this empowerment focus for years, but I still wanted to pursue weddings because I loved it and then I loved the idea of it. I mean, the romanticized everything and you know, timeless, nostalgic. There's something about it. I knew in me, in my body, I knew that like that's what I meant to do. And I can't keep doing something that's not true to me. Like, I'll still take a few weddings here and there. I still love them. And I'm good at them, and I'm like, that's fine. I have a limit now. But I can't continue to create a business that doesn't reflect who I am, what my story is, what my why is, what my values are, and expect it to be successful in a way that's rewarding to me, in a way that's fulfilling to me. And so I just had to accept that in order for me to stay true to myself, and I have the belief that like if I'm not being true to myself and if I'm only doing things for the sake of making money or to avoid risk, then like it's not worth it. And I also believe like energetically people are going to feel that and not want to book with me, or like it's just like the business isn't going to flourish unless I'm aligned. And I just knew that I had to just start making the shift. And that was just, I mean, incrementally as far as like marketing and content goes, just kind of like slowly slipping it in more and more about like my empowerment stuff, my branding stuff, and then slowly kind of taking out weddings a little bit. So there's like a very slow, intentional transition time that, I mean, it's honestly lasted about a year now. And I even like got brides booking because they're like, "Oh, I love your empowerment stuff," you know? But I think it all works. I think that when you're taking action, you're taking messy action. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm still in the transition. I'm still, you know, figuring out how to fill my books as quickly as I did with weddings.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think I just expect there to be a transition period, and I'm giving it like there's grace there because it's a transition. Like it's okay. If I expected myself to be fully booked right now in the middle of transitioning, what good is that going to do for me?
I feel like there's also something to be said about like you leaving a wedding and editing those photos and like thinking about how you feel versus you leaving a branding shoot that was with like someone who completely became a different person by the end of it and how that
Mhm.
left you feeling. There's a cost associated to that we can't wrap your hands around. It's not like a dollar amount, but I think that awareness of like, I can be good at something. I can be like, I like it, but I'm not in love with it. I think that's a scary place to be.
Mhm.
I just don't think you're alone. And as someone who's also pivoted by business, I can relate to that story. And that's why I'm just so grateful we're having this conversation now, because you're in it and you're doing it. And it's so cool to see. But just the way you talk about it and light up, it's different. I don't know if it just feels easier or what, but like, I don't know. It just watching you now intro yourself when you're like in a room versus back a year ago, I feel like it's
Yeah.
different. Do you feel that way too?
Oh, huge. I feel like a different person.
Yeah.
Completely different person.
I also am curious. This is just nosy me because of the work that you do. What are some of the transformations you get to witness of your clients, like in their lives and businesses? Because yes, the photos are a thing they get, but like I imagine a lot of them, that's just like a starting point for other things. So what are
Yeah.
some of the things you've witnessed in the work that you do and
I mean,
beyond?
it feels like the photos act as a permission for the clients.
Mm.
For that's what I mean, as far as what I've seen, and it
Mhm.
could be my own projection, but it seems like the photos are giving permission to my clients to actually step into who they want to be as business owners, as women, as mothers, as creatives, whatever role they want to fill.
Mhm.
And it's so cool to watch that, especially the business owners that are, it's fun to like deliver a gallery and then you guys just take off with it and they're everywhere. I've seen that a lot and it means my work is working. So that's cool. I think what people believe when they come to me and they hire me is, these photos can change my life and they're also going to like change the way that I market and that I do my content and how I show up. The person that you're representing in your photos
Mhm.
is who you want your audience to be connected to. And it's
Yeah.
basically like your brand images are the language that you use to attract your ideal clients. And the language is you. Is you in the photos is how you're embodying everything you want to communicate to your audience, right? So it's like creating the space for those photos to happen and the kind of memories that we create and the kind of confidence boost you have and associated to the shoot then is associated to the photos. And then as you're using those photos, the confidence and everything that came from those memories and from that experience then continues on into the world as you're sharing them. And I think that as you're doing that, like you're sending out that energy everywhere and you're like, that's me. I
Mhm.
see that and like every time you share a photo, every time you see the photos, it's like confirmed and reaffirmed that that's me, that is the version of me, that version of me is true, that I am confident, I am beautiful, I am a badass, right? Then as far as like empowerment photos, which is slightly different, a lot of the transformation in those sessions, which I call illumination sessions now, thanks Becky, is really firsthand, like
In the moment.
in the moment,
That's
yeah,
cool.
as we're shooting. So there's a shift that happens after the first time I show them the back of my camera as we're shooting. And there's this like, oh, that's me. This is what we're doing. This is the moment. There's a recognition that like this is real.
Mhm.
I'm real. Because you do all this planning and you do all of this preparation, you buy the outfits and blah blah blah. And like it's been an idea for a long time. It's been a concept for a long time. And then you get there and you finally actually see something on the back of the camera and you're like, it's really happening. And I made it here and I showed up for myself. There's this like this melting, this gentleness, this softness that comes in, this compassion. I think that comes forward during those times that just is so healing because it's like, oh, I'm finally in a safe space where I can accept myself as I am. There's no doing, there's no having to be anything for anyone else. There's just me and this moment, and I am fine the way I am. This like radical acceptance. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because it's so powerful to
Mhm.
just be able to give yourself that gift and then to have these photos that, like I said, affirm and reaffirm that truth over and over and over again every time you get to look at them, every time you get to share them.
I was gonna say, I mean, I firmly believe the work you do is like a catalyst for people. There is work that they have to go through to come to a place to make the decision to invest and say, hey, not only am I willing to invest financially, but also my time and also what that means. Like that means I need to show up in a certain way. And yes, Haley's going to help me navigate that, but like I have to make that choice. And so there is some like pre-work that happens before they even book that call with you. But there is so much cool stuff that happens because of the work you do. And I just think it's amazing. And I want people, if you're local to Washington, I mean, I know Homegirl travels too. So maybe let's not limit it there. If you find her stuff and you vibe with it and you live somewhere cool and stars align, she may come to you.
Yeah, I'm going to, well, we'll see. I mean, California, it's so heartbreaking what's happening. But I'm supposed to be in Santa Monica and hopefully San Diego this year.
So cool.
But yeah, I travel. I go wherever you want me to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, maybe not.
Somewhere cool.
Like,
somewhere cool.
Somewhere cool. Yeah.
But I mean, the point being is, again, just the word vehicle comes to mind. Like, I feel like the photography is like the mechanism, it's the tool you use to deliver this feeling and embodiment and honestly a catalyst moment for people. And so if you're listening and you're like, I don't know that I need photos, I still encourage you to follow Haley because you're going to get so much value out of what she puts out there. And she is so embodied in the work that she's doing that you can feel it in the content that you put out. I'm sure there's people who watch your stuff who have never booked a session, who are commenting and DMing and hanging out. And it's like, because they're still getting value and something from that experience and how you show up. So keep doing what you're doing and definitely please go follow her because I just feel like this is just the beginning for her. I really do. I like feel it in my bones. I cannot wait to see what the next year, 5, 10 has in store for you.
Thank you.
So I want to end with this. If people listening, you know the podcast, you know it's Get Shit Done. And yes, action's important, but is there anything that you feel like people just need to hear right now? I'll let you take that wherever you want to.
I feel like a lot of people are really suffering right now. 2024 hit a lot of people really hard. I feel like there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of collective grief with lots of different things going on in the world. I think there's a lot of power and grace and space. That's something I say a lot to my friends. I say a lot to myself. If you can give yourself the grace to just pause and ask yourself, what's going on right now with me? What do I need? How can I meet my needs? How can I bless my body right now? My mind, my soul, whatever you believe in. I think it's important to pause and to go like, I'm human, hard things happen, and just give yourself the space to feel and meet the needs. I think is really simple, but it's really powerful because I think so many of us live in a state of disassociation and live in a state of go, go, go and hustle and produce and grind that's needed to make money and to survive. But a lot of us aren't well, like mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think if we can just give ourselves a little bit of space and grace to check in and go like, okay, I need 8 hours of sleep every night if I'm going to be okay. And then making the sacrifices, making the changes in your schedule to accommodate that because you're important. Like your needs matter. And I think a lot of us might come from childhoods where our needs didn't matter, but now it's our time to reclaim that and take ownership of our lives and our mental health and to start meeting our needs in ways that they haven't been met before. And that, really comes from the belief that we're worthy of feeling good, that we're worthy of being okay and being taken care of, and then being able to meet that.
Yeah. And if you do that, then it means when you enter action mode, you're very intentional with what that action needs to be. And you're doing it in a way that's sustainable and not just a series of sprints and valleys. And I think that may surprise people listening to this, but I would way rather someone take a hiatus, take a sabbatical and come back and say, hey, I'm focusing on this one thing and that's it for the next 3 months than shoot a bunch of arrows in a bunch of different directions and hope something sticks. Because I think that like smart action is so much more important than just action for the sake of doing.
Yeah. Slow action, messy action is better than just careless, directionless action.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For winning the contest, which I just, again, the second I saw it was Haley's name, the second she entered the first time, I also was like, I'm going to be having this conversation with Haley. I just knew it. And so when it happened officially, and people, we were ethical, I promise. We put her in the spinning wheel and we did the thing. I made a spreadsheet. It felt very cool to have a little system for this.
Yeah.
But I'm just so glad people got to really experience all that you have to offer. That is so much beyond your already talented imagery that you do too. So thank you.
Well, thanks for doing the giveaway, and all the videos that you posted those 12 days were great. So thanks for everything you do.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Honestly, I just had fun. So I'm just glad that you also were along for the
Good.
fun ride too. And if people missed your Instagram, I'm assuming that's probably the best place to connect.
It is, yeah. I
Okay, cool.
definitely hang out there the most. Yeah,
where are we going?
Nota Lux, at Nota Lux, NOTA.LUX.
Yeah, definitely go follow her. Her content is beautiful, but also like Haley's kind of funny. and I think you'll be entertained, inspired, and just excited and happy to be over there. So thank you so much. And we will catch you guys next week.
Hey, thanks for being a part of the Get Shit Done revolution. My hope is this episode sparked a fire in you, equipped you with some practical next steps, or inspired you to take action towards your goals. If it did, please help spread the word by sharing this episode or leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're tuning in. Now it's time for me to hand over the keys and let you get shit done.